Welcome back, you beautiful humans. And hey, if you are new around here, well, that is certainly not my fault. So today, I want to have a discussion on why I think the soon-to-be even less expensive, and I reiterate, even less expensive M1 MacBook Airs will still be very popular even when the M1X MacBook Pros are released. And I know you're going to try to call me out there, Nikki26, but I am not rescinding my statement about waiting for the M1X Max and not apologizing for it. But what I am doing here is reminding the community that for those that currently have the M1 machines, those of you who will purchase the M1 MacBook Air after the release of the M1X releases, and of course, for the many of you who continue to hit me up in the comment section below, asking about what do I do now? And I've stated on other videos that I will be testing the M1X iteration, so feel free to subscribe and stay tuned for that. But I also want to represent the many of you out there that really have no desire or a need to have a sports car level piece of hardware that you're only going to use to pick up your kids from soccer. It really just doesn't make sense, especially when that car starts to smell like a locker room. But of course, that probably is unnecessary. But I was having a chat with someone in a live stream about reviewing tech and the saturation that's occurring in the industry to talk about the latest hardware without really considering the fact that these devices still have a place at the table and are worthy of your hard-earned dollar if it's the tool that actually gets the work done. And of course, my response is that being a part of the recommending the latest tech, the testing, the real-world use case that I put these machines through is part of helping you make that buying decision. But it also comes down to the business of what it means to stay relevant on this particular platform. But you know what is also good business? A $749 Ultrabook that beats out much of the competition right now and even in the foreseeable future. So yes, I do expect to see these prices really aligned with around $749 becoming more common when these M1X MacBook Pros are released, and mostly from retailers outside of Apple, of course. However, we could see some additional discounts in Apple's refurbished store. And we'll likely see a spike in clearing inventory as soon as the M1X is released, as well as moving into the holiday season as one of the most aggressively price to performance devices ending up in many of your hands this year. And things have really changed since the original release of the MacBook Air, as it was the most expensive and underperforming ultra portable in my opinion. And of course, really how the times have changed since then. And because when some of you start to see those M1X videos hitting your feed, including from me, and we start to get all that giddy, like
Jojo, the idiot circus boy with a pretty new pet,
excitement about their performance. And of course, I will be testing whether we're getting twice the performance, because I'm certainly expecting twice the price. And especially because paying MSRP for these current M1s will be a rare occurrence for many with all of the deals that we're going to be starting to see flying around. And as much testing on these M1 chips that I've personally done, and aside from some users not having such a positive experience, and I understand that, we can also continue to not really just get over the fact that the Thunderbolt performance isn't taking advantage of that 40 gigabits per second throughput, but just because we'll have more power doesn't necessarily equate to that advertised throughput. And even if that's the case, then we will really need to have a discussion whether this relationship can really withstand another breakdown in that communication protocol, because you can bet that I am going to be working that angle. And more developers are creating a better all-around experience with these chips. And as much as we will see these performance improvements, I feel pretty certain that this optimization and efficiency will mean the same for the current iteration for some time to come, rather than assuming that all of a sudden that the M1 is just going to be a slug with any new updates, because as I've said, this isn't a linear comparison to the x86 architecture. And as much as these chipsets are more aligned with what's in the iPhone, it isn't an iPhone, and it's certainly not iOS. And of course, no, the MacBook Air's 400 nits of brightness isn't going to burn our retinas like the eye candy that is imminent on these new displays, but it will still be plenty for those of you that are looking for a great visual experience. But that all-day battery life with the M1 MacBook Air is sure to continue to impress many of you, and getting some of those legacy port options back in the M1X will be nice if that is actually the case, because whether Apple wants to admit it, we are still working within that space. And I know some of you couldn't care any less about the HDMI port and whether that actually returns, but I guess we'll see. But what I will guarantee is that although we'll have more connectivity options, there is still going to be a market for docks and hubs. I'll be reviewing plenty of them when the M1X comes out. And that'll likely be a debate for another day and of course another video, but I'm really not trying to be obtuse here when I say that the argument for a Gen 1 product is a risky investment. I understand where you're coming from, but let's keep in mind the actual size of the investment that you're making. And although I did make a car comparison with the upcoming generation, we didn't drop the amount of money, the equivalent amount of money as we did like on that device as we would a car. Although, I don't know, the M1 iPad Pro, that's certainly another story. And hey, I just want to be clear here. I am not flat out disagreeing with you, but remember that future proofing is only going to carry you so far in these scenarios, because as much as I love these devices, they really are disposable pieces of hardware, because Apple doesn't want us tinkering under the hood of the chassis, and don't even get me started on the right to repair. So if this is a deciding factor, do think about your storage needs, think about your RAM, whether you're taking that cost savings on the M1 or you've decided to wait and you're flipping over to the M1X and you're all in on the M1X, these should be considered, because that $200, give or take, depending on your upgrade, could cost you so much more down the road. And here's the thing, it is your choice. It is your time, it is your money, and I just want you to know that you have got a seat at this table right here with your M1, and maybe even with some of that savings that you'll have from purchasing the M1, you could bring over some dinner so we could actually chat about the expectations of the M1X to be able to fix everything that's wrong with the M1s, which I can't even foresee happening, but we won't know until we test. So I'd really love to hear what your thoughts are. Hit me up in the comment section below or over on Twitter. And more importantly, you go out there and do those things that matter. Go rock those faces, and I'll see you right back here on the next one. That must have been more of a rant or something. Either way, I'm off my soapbox. You can get on it. Let's chat it up.